Today I'm waiting for an inspector, so I thought what better time to have you guys come along and do a few house projects with me. And I'm finally gonna spill the tea on our freaking contractor, so stay till the end if you're curious about that whole story. Let's get to work. So this is what I did over the weekend. I think it's gonna work so well. Mostly I wanna use this for like painting supplies because you can't keep paint in your garage if you live like, you know, somewhere where it gets cold. So we are keeping all of our extra paint here, stains, primers, and spray paint, tape, brushes, rollers, rags, sanding supplies. So I actually think this is gonna work out super well. Okay, the next thing I want to do is try to put these hinges back on our cabinet doors for these little built-ins. Whoa, hello, they're right there. And these are like brass, but they were painted white. You know, like the old owners painted them white. And I don't think you can see very much of them. They're that kind of nice type of hinge where they go on the inside, mostly, I think, of the cabinet, or of the door. So I'm going to install one of them and see how it looks. And if it doesn't look so good, I'm gonna have to paint these or sand them or get entirely new hinges. But let's see if we can salvage these first. So, I'm trying to think the best way to do this. I'll try putting it on the door first. These screws are so old, it's like there's paint in them. There's really not much to grip onto, so this is not easy. Okay, well, we got it. Perfect. So it works really well, but these are definitely, can you see on camera? These are definitely white and they definitely stand out. So I don't know, I might just like do what you're not supposed to do and paint right over these. Like, I think it'll be fine. So I'm gonna get the rest of these on, and then at some point we will paint those little hinges. I'm also thinking I'm gonna put these like original knobs on. I think they're so pretty. I think they're real brass. They're super heavy. And yeah, I just think these are going to be perfect. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm obsessed. They look so good with this color. All right, I'm doing this against my better judgment. Be honest with me in the comments. Is this what you guys would do? Or would you take the time to sand off the paint? Just doing a super light coat so that it gets rid of the white, but it shouldn't like keep it from opening nicely. We are in the laundry room, one of my favorite rooms in the house. We actually need to seal this butcher block, even though we're not gonna be like cooking on it, obviously. It's extremely porous, and yeah, you need to seal it. I don't know why, but it's just a thing. I just bought this polyacrylic crystal clear top coat. So we're just gonna put a top coat on this to seal it, and that should be fine. And we can maybe reapply this like every year or whatever we think it needs. But I'm just giving it a good wipe down before we do that because gross. So while I do this, I thought I would give you guys kind of like a little rundown of our experience building this house with a contractor. I know that I have alluded many times to just kind of the frustrations that we've gone through with this contractor and the whole process. So I just thought that some of you might like to know like kind of what our experience has been. Okay, I need to stir this. This is a water-based sealer, by the way. I've heard that oil-based sealers can start to yellow the wood over time, so I think this was the way to go. But anyway, if you want like kind of the beginning of this story, watch my very first video, just talking about like buying this house, like if you're brand new. But I guess I'll just start with it snowing into our house, which I did talk about in that video, and I showed some footage, which is actually kind of funny in hindsight, so you should definitely watch that. But that was the first thing that went horribly, horribly wrong. And it was also the first, actually no, it was not the first sign that our contractor was kind of shady. It was like the 20th sign, but it was one of the worst. Like what happened was it snowed directly into the house, into the living room, because the entire, well actually into the whole first floor, because the entire roof was off of our house. They took off the roof a few days before a bad snowstorm here in Colorado, and in their defense it was May, so obviously, you know, you're not going to assume there's going to be a snowstorm, but we did text them saying, hey, there's like a huge snowstorm in the forecast, like what's your plan? Are you going to be able to protect my hardwood floors in our house and all of that? And they were like, yeah, we'll do what we need to do, like kind of just pushed me off and were like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay. And sure enough, you know, it snows so much into the house and ruins the hardwood floors. We had to do a whole insurance claim with our insurance because his insurance didn't cover things like this. Like, yeah, so that was kind of rough. But, you know, we're super lucky that insurance did cover it, because that is not always the case. As some of you might know, it can be really hard. We've learned that we have a really good insurance provider and, you know, all that stuff. So that was a blessing for sure. Oh, and the thing that really sucked about that was, instead of our contractor being like, I'm so sorry guys, you know, this sucks, like there's nothing we could have done about it, you know, but we're gonna make it right for you guys, like, you know, just like apologizing and taking some responsibility. The contractor literally like didn't talk to us for a week, and this happened, like, I don't know, this is kind of a crazy story actually, but Jake had to have stomach surgery. And he had that surgery about a week before this snowstorm, maybe even less. And he had it in Cleveland because they have like a really good, you know, hospital there, that he's from there. He's just like used to those doctors in that hospital, and he's gotten this same surgery there before. So anyway, he was all the way in Cleveland for this surgery. I went with him, but came home to keep an eye on the house, like right, like a couple days afterwards. And then the day he was coming home, I went to get him from the airport, and we came back and all the snow that was in the house had melted and was pouring through the floors into the basement where we had been keeping like a lot of our belongings. And Jake was not allowed to lift anything heavy whatsoever, obviously, because he just had stomach surgery. And so the really sucky thing was that not only did our contractors, like, you know, let this happen to our house, but they didn't like answer their phones that whole weekend. Or was it even a weekend? I'm not even sure if it was a weekend. It might have been like a Friday that we were like, oh my God, help. Like, can you guys come over here and help us move all of our stuff? Because Jake's not allowed to lift anything. He's like, you know, 5 days post-surgery. They just like, I think they knew that they were sort of guilty of letting this all happen, and they were just like silent. And so that really sucked, because not only did we have to deal with it ourselves, like through our insurance, financially, but that night we obviously didn't have power in our house. It was completely demoed. we had so much of our stuff in the basement, and we, you know, despite Jake just being out of surgery, we were carrying shit up the stairs and into the garage in the pitch black as it is raining on us from the snow melting above. And it was like continuing to snow as well. So it was honestly crazy. And that was, like I said, one of the first like really kind of bad things that happened. And then the thing that like really started off a horrible relationship between us and our contractor was this. So basically they took the roof off of our house. It snowed into the house. We had to do all this insurance stuff. And then that same week that they like took the roof off, main GC hands us a change order. And if you don't know what a change order is, it's basically like you sign a main contract of like, okay, this is how much your project is going to cost. But sometimes we may find something like, you know, let's say, for example, finding water damage in your walls. And so in order to actually complete the scope of work, because there's water damage in the walls, it's going to cost them more money because they need more time and resources to deal with that. That's like an example of a change order. Another example is like if you want to change something as the homeowner, like if I said, hey, I actually want, you know, these types of doors instead of these types of doors, and they're more expensive, then my contractor could send me a change order. And so what happened was we had our architectural plans for 6 months at this point, maybe even more. We had our contract signed and the scope of work was completely agreed upon, and all of that. And as soon as the roof is off of the house, we are, you know, very vulnerable. We have absolutely no like leverage at this point because these people, you know, have our house, you know, in a really vulnerable position, basically. They hand us this change order for $60,000. And we're looking at this thing and we're like, what is this? Like, no, we were not warned that this was coming. There were no like questions or no communication about like, you know, any reason why we would be getting this change order. And this contractor basically just tries to tell us that, oh, well, during the architectural phase, like you guys wanted to add, like we added a mudroom. And we're like, okay, like a couple walls, you know, was the mudroom. It's not like the mudroom has like a sink or like anything expensive in it. It's just walls. And no one told us during this architectural phase, like that was going to cost any extra to have these extra walls or whatever. And let alone $60,000 extra. And so there's just other bullshit things in this change order. Like, oh, you moved, you know, before you wanted the stairs here, now you want the stairs here. And that wasn't something we suggested. That was something that the architect suggested. And the architect works for him. And so it was kind of like, okay, but we had agreed upon all of these architectural drawings months ago. So why only now are we being told that it's going to cost extra? And the other thing is, a lot of what was demoed was directly related to these extra charges. So it was almost like he waited until it was too late for us to say no to these changes or whatever to tell us how much they would cost, which is not okay. Like, we are not the contractors in this scenario. We don't know what anything costs. We're the customer. And so, yeah, he just definitely like took advantage of us in that way. And so, and the other thing is Jake and I don't just randomly have $60,000 extra to pay this man. So we were so screwed. And so the only thing we could do is try to like work something out with him. So basically that's what we did. We went back and forth, honestly, hundreds of times, being like, Okay, well, you already demoed this wall, so we're gonna go forward with these changes. Otherwise, it would just be more money to like redo work. You know, we'll pay you, basically we ended up paying him half. We ended up paying him $30,000 and switching around the scope a little bit. And so that's what we did, you know, whatever. In hindsight, not a big deal. Actually, I mean, it is a big deal because $30,000 is a lot of money. And he was not upfront about the fact that we were going to owe that. But anyway, that was another thing we dealt with. And then things started to happen, like, things started to be super late. So he had an original timeline of when things would happen. And so according to that, we were like, you know, weeks late on seeing our cabinets come in. And so we asked about that. We were like, hey, like, where are the cabinets? Like, weren't they supposed to be in weeks ago? And he gives us some, like, bullshit excuse. He's like, oh, yeah, like, you know, they should be here soon or whatever. We're like, okay. And we start to become suspicious that he never ordered these cabinets. And so we go to the cabinet place that they were supposedly ordered from, this cabinetry company, and we ask if they were ordered, and they said no. They said, you know, yes, he came in and like tried to place an order, but he hasn't paid us yet. So obviously we have not started your cabinets. And this was already, like, they were already a month late at that point, or even more, from when they were supposed to be installed, not just like purchased. And we were like, oh my God, this is gonna set us back months. Like, you know, let's just pay for them and we'll take it out of the next, you know, check that we owe to our contractor. So we did that. And then that started happening with so many other things, you guys. We started to figure out that subcontractors weren't being paid. These subcontractors wouldn't start doing work until they were paid, or they had already done a bunch of work, weren't paid, and therefore put a lien on our house, which means that basically, I don't really know how to explain this, but basically we owe them that money. And, you know, when you have a lien on your house, like, I don't really actually understand how it works, to be totally honest, but it basically means we owe them that money, and, you know, it's really bad. Like, you do not want a lien put on your house. Like, your mortgage then is affected and all of that stuff. And so that happened with several contractors, like subcontractors that, you know, our main GC hired, where we had to end up paying them. Like, and we had already paid our main contractor a lot of money, like almost 100% of, actually, yeah, we did end up paying him 100% of the contract. Then we had to double pay these subcontractors in order to either get them to do the work, because obviously no one's gonna do free work, or to, you know, so that they didn't put a lien on our house because they'd already done the work and weren't being paid by our contractor. So that happened so many times with, like, honestly, like 5 or 6 contractors that happened. And all the while, our main contractor is just totally like MIA. He's doing kind of like that thing where he's doing just enough to make it seem like he's not doing anything wrong. Like, he didn't skip town and totally like leave and abandon the job, but he only shows up every like 2 weeks to the site. And when he does show up, he shows up for like 15 minutes when we're not even there. He won't like text us back. Like, he'll text us back like 6 days later at like 3 a.m., like really shady stuff like that. And he'll just dodge any question that has to do with money or like when something's gonna happen. It just becomes really clear that he completely ran out of money and started to try to get other jobs in order to pay, you know, for our project, which is completely illegal, you guys. Like, in this, at least in the state of Colorado, whenever you are a contractor, you take funds from your customers, and you have to be able to prove, like in writing and, you know, with receipts and documents, that you've used only your customers' money on their stuff and only your other customers' money on their stuff, if that makes sense. So like you can't, you know, start dipping into other people's money for projects that have nothing to do with them. And that is very clearly what he has been doing, because he kind of had no choice. He got himself in a really bad position. And just to give you an idea of like actually how bad this was, like this wasn't just a few $100s or a few $1,000s here and there. For example, the cabinets, we had to pay $40,000 out of pocket for those. For to finish the electric, that was $10,000 that we double paid. To finish the HVAC work, like the heating and cooling, was another, I think, $6,000. And that is on top of the $30,000 that we already paid extra. And I'm definitely forgetting other things. If Jake were here, he would be going off on a rant of like all of these like financial, you know, things that happened and all of this stuff. But I don't know, I try not to think about it quite as much to preserve my sanity. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. And towards the end of our project, like more recently, he totally disappeared, and we weren't sure if he was ever going to finish this project. And during that time was when we were getting a lot of liens on our property and all this stuff, and we were just super, super stuck. So that's when we ended up kind of double paying all those subcontractors, because we were like, we have no choice. Like this guy actually has like left the job. We went to the police. Unfortunately, the police like really didn't do anything. Like, even though this guy is literally committing crimes, we could prove it. You know, if there was like any type of like investigation, it would be very, very clear that he was doing illegal things. Like, they just really wouldn't do anything. And so it was very, very frustrating. And I need to move the camera for a second. It was super frustrating. And to be honest, it's like I try so hard to stay positive about this whole experience, because this is supposed to be our forever home. Literally all of our money and more has gone into this house. We've had to borrow money from my mom, you know, for this, because of how bad this got. We originally had, you know, like, I don't know, we kind of had this perfectly planned out financially. Like, yes, it was going to be expensive, but we knew that the house would be worth a lot more when it got done. And we knew that we were going to be here for a while. So we felt it was a smart financial decision to buy the house and to do all this work on it. And I think in the long run it will be. But just because of all of the stuff that has gone down with the contractors, it has been beyond stressful. Like, and for me, you know, it's been stressful, like, you know, emotionally, just because, I don't know, like, just stressing about money in your, like, relationship, I guess, is really not fun. And Jake and I are very much on the same page when it comes to, like, saving and, you know, saving for our future and being fairly conscious about what we spend. And, you know, it still can put like such a strain on a relationship when you're having to talk about these big, big numbers of money, spending so much money, like on the daily. Like, it's not just like, okay, let's get on the same page about this one big expense. It's that, you know, day after day after day after day after day for a year and a half or more at this point. So that has been really, really rough. The reason that I'm even able to like talk about it right now is because we are coming out the other side. We are, you know, not in a good financial position at all, but we have support. My mom has been honestly incredible and like incredibly generous in supporting us, letting us live with her for so long, with her and her boyfriend just down the street. Like, I honestly don't know what we would have done without that. We probably would have given up a long time ago. So, all right guys, thank you so much for spending the day with me. I had a lot of fun doing house projects and getting some stuff done. The inspectors are still not here yet, so I'm gonna be here hanging for a while, probably just doing some paint touch-ups and like other boring stuff. So I'm gonna end the vlog here, but thank you so much for watching and look out for future videos. I know I say this every time, but I really am getting to the fun part. We're about to move in, so maybe I'll do a moving vlog, but at the very least, I wanna like do a bunch of unpacking and organizing of all of our stuff when we do move in really soon. So make sure that you're subscribed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Do not ever do this, you guys. What I'm doing is not safe.